Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mitch Taco Bell. I'm your host with Tall Tales with Taco. Welcome to the third season, first show, January of 2022. And tonight, this is going to be a blast. This is not a hard show at all. I don't have to study this guy. I don't have to read his book. I don't have to do anything except call up my good friend Parker Perkins, who I've known since I was 15 years old, and say, "Hey, Parker, man, you want to come on?" Because I sat there drinking some whiskey with him about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he sat and told me all these stories of his time when he was a mill aide, social mill aide for the White House. And I'm going, I don't remember half of these damn stories. They were great. And it was all the inside stuff. They're all the makings for perfect tall tales with Taco. So if you guys are ready and you want to hang out and catch some insider stuff, I mean, it's not often you could, all right, for example, HMX, the pilots that fly the president, the mechanics who work on the aircraft, the anybody associated in the White House or around the president or vice president of the United States has what they call a Yankee White clearance. The Yankee White clearance is probably one of the hardest clearances to get. You could be the top gun of the Marine Corps of the United States and still not be able to get one of these clearances. So, because of that, these folks who are able to get the clearance, they just basically, uh, God, I don't even can't even tell you how many people get denied a Yankee White clearance. And so the number that make it through are very minuscule. So the fact that Parker still being friends with me and all the crap that we did when we were in high school, made it to a Yankee White clearance is a huge testament to his poker face. Anyway, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet my good friend, Perfect Parker Perkins. Actually, Parker Perkins, but around our house, whenever we say perfect, it is always countered with Parker Perkins. Parker, how are you, brother? Happy New Year.
I'm good, Mitch. Thanks for having me on. Happy New Year to you too. We'll call this the COVID edition.
This is the COVID edition, right? We had it last week, sometime week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. You had it. Your family's got it. My
Yeah,
parents have had it. Everybody's getting COVID, right? It'll be the common cold of the world
2022.
nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, YouTube's probably going to put a little banner, or Facebook will put a banner on the bottom of mine about false information. Yeah.
Probably. We'll be in Facebook jail by the end of the night.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm have to call Greg Allen up and have him go beat up the, Facebook people out there. I'll give him $50. Yeah, no, that's threatening, I guess. I should say he'd go out there and shake their hands and get his 500 fights or whatever he says he's gonna do. Well, all right. Hey, Parker, tell everybody about the mill aid, and because it was actually fascinating to me. I've known you all these years, and we never really delved into I knew you worked at 8th and I, and I knew that you were a mill aide in your dress blues, and I got a
Right.
great story about that later. You opening the doors and just doing stuff for the White House. So go back in time. You got back from the war. You were motor T, and then you get up to 8th and I.
So I was at First Battalion, First Marines, and we were in Okinawa. And you may remember, Mitch, I spent a jaunt in the hospital over there, and they kept telling me they were going to send the monitors to see me. So I knew the guy was only on the island for like another afternoon. So I got in the Jeep with one of my drivers, went over and found this monitor. I basically look like Hawkeye from MASH. I'm in a bathrobe. I mean, I broke myself out of the hospital to go see where I'm going to get stationed. Long story short, I think I shocked the guy so bad that I showed up at the O Club where he was meeting all the other Marines and telling them what their duty stations were going to be. He said, "You're going to 8th and I." And I said, "Don't lie to me. Tell me where I'm getting stationed." He's like, "No, we're sending you to 8th and I." So sure enough, I get back to California. I PCS over to Virginia. I get stationed at 8th and I. So I get to 8th and I. I'm now captain. I'm single. And I hear about this White House Military Social Aide program that you can apply for. So I throw my name in the hat. And that started in like July of '94. And you're talking about how hard it is to get through. And I mean, I know you were somewhat kidding about us knowing each other as long as we did. I had to give your name.
And they called me. And they said, "Hi, we're from the Defense Investigative Service, and we're doing a background investigation on Captain Lionel Parker Perkins, and we wanted to ask you a couple questions." And so right off the bat, I'm having fun with the guy. Hey, Parker's a great guy, except for Thursday nights after his American,
Exactly. I was worried about that right there.
Yeah. He didn't get as drunk as on Saturday nights when he was hanging out with his Hell Angels biker friends,
I mean, buddies from high school, college that I hadn't talked to in years were coming out of the woodworks going, "Hey, the DIA, the FBI is calling us. What's going on with you?" So, long story short, I got through. I mean, there were one or two things that almost felt like they were going to trip me up. I guess, and looking back on it, it wasn't a big deal. I actually got called up to the barracks one day to go to the DIA guy's office, and he said, "You're holding out on us. You haven't disclosed everything." And I'm like, "Well, I had this speeding ticket. I had this ticket here, and I swear I don't remember anything else." And I guess for guys our age, you can sympathize with this. We were legal in Virginia to drink because of 18 and the grandfather clause with alcohol.
Right.
But remember, I worked every summer in North Carolina.
Right.
There was no grandfather clause in North Carolina. So between getting out of JMU one summer and working in the Outer Banks, it was like 3 weeks before my 21st birthday, I got a drinking underage ticket. A drinking underage ticket that I did not disclose because I had forgotten about it. And it almost derailed my security clearance because they were like, "You're obviously hiding something from us." So anyway, and this thing actually got kind of frightening because I had some other officers that I worked with. I mean, very good people, but somewhere in their backgrounds in college or something, they didn't disclose like pot use or something like that, and it would come back and bite them.
Yeah, because they don't just call Mitch Bell up. They'll call, "Hey, by the way, who's a friend?" Because when you list people on your references, they know that those are people that you can trust. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, Parker's the greatest guy in the world. But then they start digging down. They'll go, "Hey, could you give us the name of 3 other people that knew Parker or went to high school with Parker?" And they will eventually whittle down until they find a person that's got the dirt and knows where the bodies are buried.
I really, I contemplated there might be some bodies coming back, but anyway, I got through it. So, and you have to go through these interview levels. I vaguely remember, I think I had to interview with the barracks CO. Mm-hmm. I had to interview with a full colonel that was the head of the military office at the White House, which I got out my official White House military office mug, and I'm drinking a little non-alcoholic beverage in it. But you go through all these interviews, but your last interview is you have to meet the honest to God social secretary at the White House.
And who was that? Was that Linda Tripp?
No, it was Ann Stock. I sent you that link on her. She was a Clinton appointee, and she worked directly for Hillary Clinton. And I actually, I think last time you were here at the house, I told you 1 or 2 stories about Miss Stock, because I mean, very good at her job, very, very precise about stuff, but she was a political animal. We're Marines there trying to do our thing, and she's there trying to accomplish the mission of the social secretary at the White House. But once you meet with her, you get the stamp of approval. And I think, and some of this is my memory, so some of this gets a little foggy since we are slightly older now, but my first event that I got to work was St. Patrick's Day, 1995, and I just remember leading up to my first night going over there to the White House to work. There was all this press going on about, and there's an organization called Sinn Féin.
Yeah.
So the head of Sinn Féin was being invited to the White House. There was a big stink about it from what I remember. And I can't remember the guy's name. But I go to work St. Patrick's Day there, and it's not at all dignified. I mean, there were drunks at the White House till like 2 a.m.
And you're in your dress blues, right?
Oh, I'm there in my dress blues. You have this thing on called an aiguillette, which huge gold rope that you wear over your right shoulder. Now that I'm thinking about it, we're the only guys that get to wear those things. That signifies that you work for the President of the United States. So we would wear them, and the actual military aides that I think carry the football wear them.
And did you get to wear that back at 8th and I, or go to a wedding?
You only put that sucker on when you were headed over to do a function on behalf of the White House.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to say they were dancing on tables at the White House, but you know, like at 2 a.m., I'm like, when's this thing closing down? So, but that was the first event I remember working. And I sent you that list. Which things do you want to sort of talk about? Or
let's go through. You know, Bob Hope. I met Bob Hope when I was second lieutenant up at the National. What's the performing arts place up there on the Potomac?
Kennedy Center.
Kennedy Center. Thank you. And it was the big Kennedy Center thing, and it was a big deal because we had President Reagan in the audience, and we had President-elect Bush backstage with us, and then Bob Hope. And so we got to sit and talk to him, and I mean, just greatest, nicest guy in the world. Absolutely.
Love the military. So when you were here, I was trying to remember some things. I had to sit down and do a little studying for your list. So September and I think October of '95, not only did I get to work the there was a performing arts kind of thing going on at the White House, which was when Bob Hope showed up. But I also worked the Kennedy Center Honors, I think, which I put down on that list. That was where Sidney Poitier was at, and I got to see and meet him. But anyway, I'm at this arts function that the White House has going on, and we would all come in through the east entrance. We had our own, you know, this was high tech back then. We had these cards that we could slide at the turnstile over there by the east gate and come in. You know, we were very important people. And when you got there,
Secret Service.
Yeah, there would be an agent there in that booth, and I mean that thing is like a bomb shelter that they're in. Those guys are in, and they would come out and they would check you off the list, but you had to have your card with you too to run, so that the system would let that turnstile let you in. And we would all gather over there in the East Wing, and they would then, somebody from the military office, like Bobby Chun or somebody, would come down and tell us what we're doing. So at this art function thing, I was going to be sort of a greeter at the first part of the evening, but then at the second part of the evening, I got called over to go to the West Wing and get Bob Hope from meeting with the president and bring him up to the state floor. So I do some greeting that night, meet some of the guests that are there. And like I said, Lou Gossett Jr. and Ruby D and Ozzie Harriet and some of these other folks were there. I mean, you're kind of invisible, but you're not. If somebody wants to ask you a question, they can talk to you. You have to learn enough history about the White House to sort of be able to answer intelligently about things. Otherwise, you just sort of blend in the background.
They tell you not to talk to anybody. Don't talk to the talent.
Yeah, you don't initiate conversations generally. They do it. And so, like, I think I told you, I'm standing there minding my own business. November 10th, not too far away, and Lou Gossett Jr. walks up to me and goes, "Hey, Skipper, happy birthday." And I'm sort of looking at him going, "Excuse me, sir?" He's like, "Come on, Marine, the birthday." I was like, "Oh, the Marine Corps birthday." I was like, "How did you know that?" And he's like, "Well, this was this movie I played in. I played
Officer
a gunny.
Gentleman.
Officer and a Gentleman." And so he spoke to me for a few minutes, which was pretty cool. And
cool.
So then I got called away to go over and get Bob Hope, and very old. I mean, he was very white, and I felt bad for him almost. The lower part of his eyes, sort of, they were pink around him. That old looking, but obviously enjoying being here at the White House. No way he could climb these stairs. So this was my one and only opportunity to get on the White House elevator.
Oh yeah. Oh, cool.
So this elevator goes from whatever floor all the way up to the residence, okay? Which none of us are allowed to go up to the residence. And don't ask me how it happened, Mitchell. I get on the elevator with Mr. Hope, and somehow the button for the residence gets pushed. So we're going up, and I see like 1, 2, 3 floors go by, whatever, and we're supposed to stop on 3, and we go by there, and the door dings up at the residence, and there's a Secret Service agent waiting for us. And I think if I hadn't had Bob Hope with me, my life would have been over because I was expendable. But he's like, y'all on the wrong floor, and we're like, yes, we are.
We're going back down. Yes,
we went back down. And, you know, obviously somebody, even at that age, somebody like Bob Hope, he knew everybody there or was willing to speak to everybody and know them. And he was at a point still where he needed me to lean on, to help him move around. And I got him seated. And again, this is by memory. Whatever people were speaking, whatever was going on about arts and some political things about budgets being cut and arts being taken out of school and stuff like that was sort of the gist of the evening. So all that was winding down, and Bob Hope says to me, "Hey, Captain, do you know that Marine up there on the piano?" And I go, "I certainly do. That is Master Gunnery Sergeant Charlie Corrado, who has been here since the Kennedys." And Mr. Hope goes, Mr. Hope goes, "Was he any good on the piano?" I was like, "Yes, sir, he's good on the piano." So we go up there, and I introduce Charlie to Bob, and Bob Hope goes, "Gunny, if I hum a tune, can you play it?" And Charlie's like, "Well, let's give it a try." And you'll notice in that article I sent you, Mitchell, it doesn't go the same way in my memory. It talks about Bill Clinton started this, but Bill Clinton didn't start this. Bob Hope did. And Bob and Charlie are sitting there getting this music going, and all of a sudden, over my shoulder, Bill Clinton comes in and slides in next to Charlie, who knew how to play the piano, and says, "I want to accompany you."
He can play the sax.
Well, he can play the piano. So him and Charlie play the piano, and Bob Hope spins around and sings "Thanks for the Memories," which is his sort of theme song,
right,
to the crowd there. And I mean, I stood there up front in the state dining room or whatever at the White House while Bill Clinton and Charlie Corrado are playing TV, and I'm holding on to Bob Hope while he's singing to all these, you know, Hollywood types. It was very cool. Very cool.
Well, tell him how Charlie actually got that gig and what he was doing prior, how he got hired as a musician.
So most of the Marine Corps band members, I won't say all, but I think most of them have like master's degrees or PhDs in music. They do not generally go through Paris Island or San Diego. They get recruited to be band members. They go through like a little short how to be a Marine camp there at the barracks. And most of them come in, I think, like as sergeants or staff sergeants. So Charlie is actually Lance Corporal Corrado at the time, I think, in the 3rd Marine Division Band out in Okinawa, Japan. He had gone to boot camp. He had gone through, and I don't think his MOS was banned, but anyway, he played the not the ukulele. Oh shoot, polka music.
Yeah, polka. What is that?
Accordion.
Accordion.
So Kennedy gets elected, and his favorite music is polka music, and the Marine Corps band does not have anybody that can play an accordion. So the call goes out to the whole Marine Corps looking for a musician that plays the accordion, and Charlie gets the call, and he comes from Okinawa all the way to Washington, D.C., and is put in the Marine band and starts playing at the White House under the Kennedys. Now, don't ask me why. Charlie, I guess, figured that sooner or later when President Kennedy left office, then the Marine band wasn't going to need an accordion player any longer. So somewhere in there, he started to learn how to play the piano. And when Kennedy was assassinated, Charlie then went on to become the White House pianist, but he played all the way from JFK up until George Bush II.
Right.
And again, I told you, Mitchell, when you came to visit, he was the guy that played all the music at my weddings. At my wedding,
I remember meeting him at your wedding. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just the nicest guy. But he would tell me all the stuff he had, all these letters, all these pictures, all these famous people that he had pictures of from him playing the piano at the White House. And you've read some of the stories there. Like there was something with Nixon where Charlie had to fly out in the middle of the night that Nixon needed a piano player somewhere, and they needed a piano player one time at the White House. They sent a Humvee to get him because D.C. was shut down with snow. I mean, he just was the nicest guy and so talented. But like I said, he and Bill Clinton played the piano while Bob Hope stood up there at the front of the White House and sang to everybody.
And that was like in September. So you're gearing up for the big party with Chevy Chase, right?
So I'm gonna guess that it was so Christmas at the White House is kind of interesting. My recollection is like starting December 1st and going up to like December the 20th, the White House, at least under the Clintons, ran 2 events each night. They would have like a 6 o'clock event and an 8:30 event. And most of these events were, obviously the White House is fully decorated with all the decorations. But for everybody that was like a supporter of the Clintons or Gores or something like that were invited to these functions. And one night, yes, there was a function where Chevy Chase was invited. And I think he was invited to maybe the earlier one. So he got there at 6 and was supposed to be out of there at 8:30. And he had overserved himself. And myself and 2 or 3 other aides, from what I can remember, overstaying the east wing of the White House, 2 or 3 Secret Service guys basically had to force him out. He got ejected from the White House.
Chevy Chase. Oh,
yep.
Christmas vacation at the White House. Hey, man, did he go up and say, "Hey, Bill, hell, man, how you doing, man? You got any cigars?"
He did ask the Secret Service agents if they knew who he was. So they were like, "We know who you are, but you're going home."
Did you ever see anybody else get booted out there?
No, I mean, everybody was pretty much, from what I can remember, pretty cordial. That St. Patrick's Day event was probably the most off the hook thing I ever saw while I was there. No, but mostly everybody was pretty well behaved at these things. I mean, they would have good times, and you would see famous people like Bette Midler or Kathy Lee Gifford or whoever was there. If they saw the people they knew, they would, they'd be hugging and stuff like that at these events. But most of the time, they're pretty low key, pretty cordial. Try to keep it dignified.
I remember I moved from Okinawa to Kansas City. So this would have been in 95. And so you were doing this.
Yep.
And one night at like midnight or 1 a.m. my time, I get this phone call from you and you go, "Hey, man, who's your best friend?"
Oh, yeah.
Parker, what do you need, man? Are you in jail? You need bail? What? And you're like, "No, man, am I your best friend?" "Yes, you're my best friend." "Why?" "What would you do if I happen to have the personal business card of a certain guy who owns a certain company in Memphis?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Dude, I met Fred Smith. And Fred Smith and I were sitting there shooting the bull." Tell that story, because I'll finish up mine. It's pretty funny.
So the call went out that the president was going to have one of these S&P 500 CEO summits. And I got chosen. And again, I don't remember how you got chose to work these things. I mean, I ended up working some really good events, and I ended up working some really bad ones. So I got to go work this thing. It was during the day, which is a little unusual too. Most of them were evening events like state dinners or Christmas parties or whatever. State floor of the White House. Everybody's in a coat and tie. There's maybe
state floor. Where's what if you're looking at the White House? What is like the state floor?
So the main gate at the White House there. That's the north portico. that if you could actually drive into the White House, you come under that portico, and as you go in that door, that's the state floor of the White House. And there's like a state dining room, and then there's the ballroom down here on the left, I guess you would call it. And then where we would do the receiving lines were like the red, blue, and green rooms. And then those rooms overlook the South Lawn over on that side of the White House. So the ballroom or whatever down here that you see a lot of the press events go on was where all these folks were. They had some hors d'oeuvres, some drinks set up. And we're all maybe 8 or 10 aides there. We're just all against the wall. You know, we're not really interacting with anybody. We're just there sort of window dressing. And this guy walks up to me, and he's probably in his late 40s or 50s at that point. And he starts talking to me about Lieutenant General Mutter, who was the first female lieutenant general that the Marine Corps got. And he's like, is she over at the barracks? And what do you think of her? And I'm like, I'm a captain, and I see her from a distance. And if she's got 3 stars, obviously she's good to go. And he's asking me about deployments. And finally he goes, you don't know who I am, do you? And I go, no, sir. I'm going to guess you're the either CEO or CFO of some major S&P 500 company, because that's what's going on here today. But obviously you spent some time around the Marine Corps because you know all the lingo. He goes, well, I was a Cobra pilot, which, okay, hey, cool. Got out of captain, decided to go to business school. And for one of my last classes for my master's degree in business, I thought up this idea for a new business I wanted to start. And I failed. My paper failed. And so I made it my mission to go out and prove that professor wrong. And I started this company called FedEx. And I went, holy shit. I was like, I got a buddy who's a C-130 pilot, and all he ever talks about is working for FedEx. His favorite expression is packages can't complain.
Yeah, boxes don't complain, right?
Yeah, boxes don't complain. I can yank them and bank them however I want to. So he talked to me for a few more minutes, and I can't remember he pulled it out himself or he had somebody lurking around that he signaled, and they came over and he flipped this card over and he crossed through one number on there and he wrote this. He's like, this is my direct line. And, I saved that card for years. I had it somewhere in a binder and I can't find it. But anyway, you were employed at FedEx, whether you want to know it or not.
Yeah. Well, no, I was still in the Marine Corps, and I had a couple years left on my contract before I could get out. And your call, you go, got a pen? I'm like, yeah. And you go, write this number down. And so I wrote the number down, whatever, 615 or whatever it was. And it was his personal fax number.
Yeah.
And you go, Fred told me to tell you, fax him your resume, and on the cover letter, reference meeting me at the White House. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? No. And I'm like, God. So now the whole next day, I'm calling a buddy who's a pilot. And I'm like, hey, can I borrow your resume? I need a model of resume. I don't know how to make a resume. And so I did this resume and I faxed it to Fred Smith. And I get an overnight letter back the next day. Dear Captain Bell, hey, received your letter. Appreciate it. And I forwarded it down to personnel. I'll take care of you when your commitment's up with the Marine Corps. Simplify, Fred. And I'm like,
oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, I loved you, man. And I'm at American. I love my company. I love my job. But there are often times I think about, boy, that daylight captain, wide body out of Memphis, 98 hire. Yeah. Thanks, Parker. But no, it all goes to who you know and have a business card handy and all that stuff, right?
He was a great guy, and I guess it wasn't too long after that Tom Hanks movie came out, which was fun to see him in it.
Yeah.
What was that movie?
Castaway.
That's right.
They did a good job. They did a good job with FedEx. FedEx did a phenomenal job making themselves look good because it was all about FedEx, and so they did a great job on that movie. I really thought.
Right.
And it's funny too, when that movie came out, you remember the scene where he's on the beach at night, he's still kind of a novice, and he hears noises, and he's like, "Who's there? Who's there?" And you hear thump, bump, bump, bump. Who's there? Well, I was on a layover with a couple flight attendants and the captain. We were in St. Paul, Minneapolis. We went to go see that movie. And the girl goes, oh my God, is it like a lion or something? And I'm thinking, on a desert island? I go, no, it's coconuts. She goes, what? I go, they're coconuts. This happened to me in Australia. I was laying on this little island called Cocos Island, and I'm laying there on my stomach, and I'd hear thump, boop, boop, boop. And I'd look around. I'm thinking my crew members were messing with me, hiding behind the coconut trees, but it was the coconuts falling out of the tree. And then when he pulled up one, that was kind of funny.
Right.
Yeah, no, but yeah, great movie, great guy. So all my buddies, I have a lot of Marine buddies over at FedEx because it's kind of a Marine mafia. But
Did you keep that letter by any chance?
yes, oh God, I wish I had pulled that out.
It's
Yes,
okay.
I do have that letter. I
Text me a
have it.
picture sometime.
I will. I have that letter, and maybe I can post it in the comments here on the show. But so you got to meet Fred Smith, which was just magnificent. Who were some of the other people you got to meet off the top of your head?
Off the top of my, well, I told you the story about Meg Ryan. She stepped on my foot.
Tell that story.
Stepped on my foot. I think that was we're bouncing around a little bit now, but that's the state dinner for Mary Robinson, I think the president of Ireland. And it was a big tent out on the South Lawn, because I remember standing up under the South Portico or the landing there as you go down, and she stepped on my foot and turned around and started with her fingers touching all my medals. You know that was freaking me out, because those things were all shined up, and she was putting her fingerprints all over them.
Anodized medals.
Anodized medals, and she was telling me how she had just played a captain flying a helicopter in the Army. It was some Gulf War movie. And I'm sitting there, yes, ma'am, sounds really interesting. That's awesome. Quit touching my medals.
Did you say, I always loved you ever since you kissed Goose? I would have married you if Goose
she was so deep in my OODA loop with fingering my medals, and she just wouldn't let go of one of them. I couldn't think of anything else. It's like she had me pinned against the back of this porch. And Vice President and Mrs. Gore were there trying to talk to her too. And then there were some events. Like I said, I got to meet Sidney Poitier. I say meet. Be within 4 or 5 feet of them as they walk by or during an event. But like Sidney Poitier, Anthony Hopkins. I did have James Earl Jones. We were doing a receiving line. And I told you how they have the red, the blue, and the green room. And so he was standing at one of the doors, and he said, "What room is this?" And I said, "This is the blue room." And oh, yeah, that's pretty obvious, because the whole room's just blue. In that voice of his.
You call him Moto? Master of the obvious?
Showed up there one day early. I think I told you before an event, and Kramer. What's Seinfeld. His real name? Yeah, from Seinfeld.
Michael. I don't remember.
Yeah, he was there, and it was like 4 or 5 aides, and he wanted to get pictures with us. And see, this is back during the time, no cell phones. We couldn't have cameras in there. So we were like, And we finally said, we'll do some pictures with you, but you got to send us copies of them, because we don't ever really get pictures of ourselves up here. So took a bunch of pictures with him, never got them. And it was kind of weird, because he was there, but he had Jerry Seinfeld's current girlfriend with him at the time. Her name was like Shoshana Hanks.
Right.
And she ended up, I guess later on when she and Jerry broke up, she was into making purses. She was like a purse designer or something. Let's see. I got to escort, and I don't know what event this was for, Mitchell. It was probably some sort of press correspondence event, but I did get Michael Richards. I did get the chance to escort Walter Cronkite and his wife, who I think her name was Mary, which was fun and awkward all in one evening, because I think, honest to God, the lady was flirting with me in front of her husband.
No, all right. Tell what she said to you.
She's like, Walter, I really want to take this Marine home with us. And Walter's like, well, you can ask him, but I don't think he's going to want to come. And I'm like, no, ma'am, I got things to do after this is over. She's like, if I was 10 years younger, you'd be coming home with me. I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm sure you're right. So I knew she was kidding, but you just don't, I mean, here's Walter Cronkite, who your family's watched on the news forever, and you want the serious news coming from him, and his wife's hitting on you. So
the old guy. And we're talking, yeah.
Yeah, they were old. They were like, I want to say they were like in their 70s when I was escorting them.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So
Walter, anybody else ever hit on you? They tell us about Monica.
So we interacted with all the interns, and I remember Monica being there. But for me, it's kind of funny because I got out right before stuff got bad, probably. I got out in September 96, and I think it all went south really either in late 96 or early 97. But I remember just being excited one day that I got to like walk Socks the cat around. Everybody, but during my tenure there, they would ask about the cat. So I probably got off easy. I feel bad for some of the aides that were around afterwards that maybe knew Monica or were there when all that was going down at the White House. I'm sure it was not pleasant.
Not a pleasant time.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Hell, man. Yeah, you know what my definition of safe sex is? Hell, it's my wife is up in New York City. I'm sorry, I can't forget. You know what? As much as you don't agree with somebody's politics, my old boss, who was the mill aide, carried the football. He told me he worked 1 year for President Bush Sr. and then 2 years for Clinton. And I remember him telling me, it doesn't matter your politics. When you are in the room with Bill Clinton, he makes you feel like you are the most important person ever. And you forget all politics aside. You forget politics. He could even help persuade you otherwise.
He is very sharp, Mitchell. He's very charismatic. I think so one of those events I worked was the South Korean president's state dinner.
Uh-huh.
And that was the event. I sat down and went back and looked at the timeline of some White House events. That was the event that I told you, and don't ask me how it happened. The receiving line was over. Everybody was clearing the room. And then all of a sudden the door was shut in the blue room. And it was me, a Secret Service agent, and Bill and Hillary. And all these guests are down in the state dining room, and the Marine band started to play. And I'm at one door, and I'm not there guarding anything. That's the first thing you're told. You're just there as window dressing. But I just happened to be standing at one of the doors in the blue room, and then the main door out to the hallway was where the Secret Service agent was stationed. And all of a sudden, Bill and Hillary are dancing cheek to cheek with each other. And I mean, it was just kind of like, I'm staring over at the agent, he's looking over at me a little bit, we're just not saying anything. And it was a very personal moment that went on for about 5 or 6 minutes with the President of the United States and his wife sitting there dancing cheek to cheek. And then the door opens, and in came the Vice President and his wife. They talk for a minute, and then the two couples start dancing for a few minutes before the social secretary or somebody came down and said, okay, it's time for you to come down there. But, I was within arm's length of where they were, just having a personal, family, intimate moment, and it was really surreal,
Yeah, that is. I mean, how were you window dressing? So were you, hey, Parker, you stay in the blue room or you hang out here or what?
I just got kind of stuck, I think, Mitchell. And I just remember going to sort of parade at ease over there by that door. And that's where I stayed until everybody left the room.
Wow.
Just ended up working out that way. Because I think how it happened was I was manning the door that as the receiving line was finished, people were going out. So the receiving line finished, and I went to shut the door. And then when I turned back around, everybody was gone except the Clintons and this agent. And he had shut the door to sort of exit at that point. So, for all they cared, they didn't know I was there. They were so used to the environment being like that. And I didn't say anything, and I didn't move. So I was listening to their personal, I don't even know what they were talking about other than, this is a great evening. Oh, the music's wonderful. The food is going to be great. Kind of different.
Yeah, but that's kind of nice. It's a nice story from the other stories you hear about her being tyrant and whatnot. So yeah, good to see some personal stuff. Did you ever talk to Chelsea? Did you ever get a chance to see her? She come to any of that stuff?
I I think I saw her at the White House Easter egg roll.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That's what the
Yeah.
egg looked like from 1996.
What's that made out of?
It's like wood, I think.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So, but other than that, no. I've always said that besides politics and what I thought about Bill Clinton, the one thing I did think about that I did see to me that was a positive about the Clintons where they were very protective as much as they could be in that fishbowl of Chelsea.
Yeah, I don't envy anybody being up there. I don't
The,
care your political persuasion. That is not something you want to try to raise your family in. That's not normal.
the average American has zero idea of just how much those people are pulled at, regardless of what Republican, Democrat. Once they're the president of the United States, their lives and their families' lives cease to be their own, and there is always somebody there on top of them, and always somebody that wants it, especially the president and the first lady. Always, and and with every president, especially if they do two
Two terms.
terms, look at the before and after pictures. Jesus Christ, they age like 20 years, and that's because they're so hounded day in and day out. I mean, there is no driving over McDonald's by yourself and getting a shake, or going on vacation by yourself with your family. It becomes a huge ordeal with a huge line of people behind you that are entrenched to support White House Communications Agency and the White House Transportation Agency and all the stuff that goes into them being able to go and do whatever it is they have to do. So,
God, yeah, that's a miserable existence. Well, they're burning. I mean, kind of burning the candle at both ends if they're doing two events a night. Now, was that just Christmas season
that's just
specials?
Christmas.
Oh, okay.
But again, with the Clintons, and I'm sure every White House is different. And I know this year, like the Bidens had COVID protocols. The White House Military Aide Association, we have the opportunity every Christmas to go back and tour. They have a special tour for us. First time in forever that we didn't get to tour this year.
Huh.
So, but yeah, for the Clintons, it was from 1 December to 20 December, it was a haul, every night events.
Good God, man!
And there's a small, and it burned the aides out because there's only a small pool of aides. It's Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Navy, and Marines, but there's only like 4 or 5 of each of us from the branches, so it's a small pool.
Mateus asked, why was one of the requirements to be single for the White House assignment? That was a good question.
Because we work so much. I had to work a normal job at Marine Barracks during the day, and then I go work evenings or weekends or whatever at the White House. I mean, if you got a wife and kids, you'd never see your family.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so somebody who's a career ambition, they can't do it. I mean, somebody that really want to do it because they're married.
Yeah, if they're married, they can't, unless something's changed there. If you're married, they're not letting you do it. You got to be single.
Did they ever have guys travel on staff?
We wouldn't travel with them, but the guys that carry the football do, and a lot of times the football carriers would come from the pool of social aides, from what I could tell.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to ask General Whistler about that. So you have 5 guys or five people, men, women, officers who carry the football for the president that are within an arm's length of the president, and Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, and they all rotated. I know that, you'd have a week here and then you would have a week off, or you'd be back at the White House working stuff. I know that he traveled a lot. That was a big deal.
Yeah. But I mean, they're part of the military. There, like I said, there's a full colonel from what I remember, and then a civilian like GF-15 or something. His name was Bobby Chun, in the military office there at the White House, and they're responsible for the doorstops. I think they were responsible for like the guards at Camp David, and at the time, They probably did all the interacting with HMX1. Anything military related was what that office and the aides and all that. So,
What did you ever know a Sean O'Shea?
so it's funny you say that. I see that name pop up, and I picture, I want to say, an Air Force guy with red hair. So I might have. It's been so long ago, and we didn't have cell phones back then. We weren't allowed to take pictures, and I don't even have a list of some of the people that I worked with. I wished I did. So
That's crazy. Did it help with your fitness report?
Must have, because I got augmented, was accepted into the regular Marine Corps, and it had been for me getting married, I probably would have stayed in the Marine Corps at that point.
Mm.
I mean, you know me, Mitchell. I had that helicopter crash on the back end of my ship in 1992, and that pilot died in it, and his daughter was born a couple of days after we left San Diego, and he never met his daughter, and it just always stuck with me. So
Mm-hmm.
I figured I'll stay in while I'm single, which I thought I never would get married. So,
Well, you and I, we both married above our pay grades, but look at this. This is young Parker, young Taco back in 19. That would have been 19.
that's 89 right there, I think, or
That's
90.
89. Yeah, you were in TBS. You were down at
Yeah,
TBS. You
yeah.
had that red car, of
Prelude.
course, that Prelude, and then you,
This
me,
was the
Wes,
this was the
Malcolm.
this is the cross country trip. You were down at Corpus Christi, and then you and I left either that day or the next day. And we went over to the University of Texas and hung out with Missy and
Heather.
Heather. Yeah, yeah. Went to the
Yeah.
UT football game. It was like small town boy in the big city. I was like never seen a football stadium that big.
Yeah, I think you fell in love with Texas and the Texas women there. That's for
And I
sure.
did.
And yeah, you had a phone call from the
Hook.
or message from the chaplain, didn't you? Years
I
later.
did. Yeah, yeah. I've got that.
All right.
I've got that kid hanging around out there that I didn't know about.
What was his name?
Doyle Dunn. Chaplain Dunn.
Chaplain Dunn. All right, guys. So this is a great story. Years ago, email had just been invented, and I'm in Okinawa, Japan, and I'm like, we have this thing with you could get on there, and if your IT guy loaded you into the system, your name's in there. So I started looking up my old roommate Chuck Dunn, and I see this Lieutenant Dunn, 8th and I, and I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah,
I wonder if that's my roommate.
Lieutenant Commander.
Yeah, but he was a lieutenant commander, and and so I emailed this guy out of the blue. I go, "Hey, Lieutenant Commander Dunn, you don't know me from Adam. I'm Mitch Bell. I'm in Okinawa, Japan, but my best friend from high school and college lives there in DC, and he works at 8th and I with you. His name is Parker Perkins. I don't know if you know him or not, but if you do and you want to play a little trick on him, just let me know and I'll fill you in on the details." So I get this reply back, "Oh yeah, I know Parker. Send it." And so, hey, go ahead, tell the story. What happened? Oh, I screwed you so
So we
bad.
had an officer meeting over at Center House, and I walked in, and the chaplain says, "Hey, I need to see you after this is over." I'm like, "Okay, sir." So meeting's over, and I said, "What's up?" He's like, "Well, I got a Red Cross message," and I'm like, "Can you give it to me?" He's like, "Nah, you need to come to my office for this one." And my grandmother at the time was elderly, and so I'm starting to like, well, maybe this is personal. It's about me. So I follow him over to his office, which was outside the barracks walls, across the street or something, from what I remember. And we get in there, and he sits down behind his desk. He says, "Take a seat, Captain." He's like, "I need to make you aware that you're a father." And I'm like, "Say again?" He's like, "The command has been notified that you had a child out of wedlock back before your first tour out at Camp Pendleton." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know who or what sort of joke's being played here." I said, "I think Mitchell is dating some Red Cross girl over in Okinawa, and they've sent you some bogus info." Because Mitchell didn't realize that this girl that he was claiming that I had fathered this child with, I had seen her shortly after my deployment to the Gulf War. So I knew she wasn't pregnant. But anyway, he had me going. He had me going for about that long. A little bit of woo. That was. I mean, if you want to tell him, Mitchell, the best prank you ever played on me was the package at Officer Cannon's school. So I mean,
oh shoot, you guys, when you go to the Marine OCS or boot camp and you get a package, the drill instructor makes you open the package up. So, unbeknownst to Parker, I'm in Corpus Christi with a guy named Grant Kowalczyk. And Grant went to I think Longwood.
No, he was a lifeguard with me. He went to Longwood. He was a lifeguard with me every summer in the Outer Banks.
And Grant, his call sign is Link because he's about
Missing Link.
Yeah, Missing Link. He's about 6'1", huge dude. Great guy you want standing behind you at the bar. You speaking to moi? And so Grant and I were sitting there talking about stuff, and somehow came up about he and Janet were lifeguards in Exit. And I go, hey, do you know my good friend Parker Perkins? And he goes, God damn, Parker. Parker, perfect Perkins. I know perfect Parker Perkins. God damn it. That's the way he talked. And I said, hey, you want to have a little fun with him? I just got his address at OCS. And so we got this poster of a bunch of half-naked dudes, all these lifeguard dudes wearing little Speedos. And then we took magic markers and we drew out of their mouth little bubbles that said, like, you're the best thing since sliced bread. I heard you could beat your drill instructor in the 3-mile run. They ought to just hand you the keys to an F-18 right now. And then we wrote to candidate Colonel Perfect Parker Perkins. And then we put
you forgot Stud Muffin. You put Stud Muffin in there.
Oh yeah, we did put Stud Muffin. And then I think I wrote Captain J. Walker was a reply or return address or something like that.
The return address was J. Walker and Bob Sled, and you addressed it to Captain Candidate Lionel Parker, Stud Muffin Perkins something. I mean, for all the fellow Marines out there, I'm at OCS. I'm in like week 3. I'm sailing under the radar. I'm doing everything I need to do. I'm staying off. Nobody's bothering me. And one day we're in there cleaning our shoes or cleaning a weapon or cleaning something. And candidate report to the duty hut. And, you spring up, candidates, you go running down there, you bang on the duty hut. And I knew I was hosed. I mean, I went in there and all 3 sergeant instructors were standing behind Captain Lige, our PLC, was sitting at his desk. And there's this tube. There's this tube laying on the desk. And they made me come to attention. I'm staring off into oblivion. And they're like, were you ever in the military before, candidate? No, sir, this candidate wasn't in the military before. And they're like, huh. And open that tube. So I reached down and cut open this tube somehow and put it back down on the desk and went back to attention and the 1,000-mile stare. And Mitchell only remembers part of it because he had 2 posters in there. One of them was like one of them was so this on this tube. The first thing on this tube they had Parker wants to be an F-18 pilot and drill instructors suck. All this stuff's written on the outside of this tube, and you never see a drill instructor crack a smile. My 3 drill instructors were laughing. My PLC was laughing. I started to crack up, which then immediately caused them to start screaming and yelling to resume position of attention. The first poster they pulled out was some poor Marine WM second lieutenant who did like the first advertising campaign as a woman for the Marine Corps. She's like standing in front of the Washington Monument, and Mitchell's written some stuff about me being some sort of Minuteman, and but with all the guys, I'm some sort of Duracell. And the sergeant instructors are trying to read this, and they're not even, it's sort of going over their heads. I don't know what this means. And then the other poster was this like California guys at some lifeguard stand with like 20 dudes all in Speedos. They got every piece of hair on their body shaved off. It talks about me like using oil and Minuteman and,
And we put candies in there and sweet tarts, or we put a bunch of crap in there. So when you turn the tube, you can hear the stuff going back and forth end to end.
So I had this mean as shit little sergeant instructor named Sergeant Wade, and he immediately looked at me and he goes, "Candidate Perkins, that's the last time you're ever going to hear that name. From this moment forward, you're Candidate Stud Muffin." And he walked out to the squad bay and announced I was now reborn as Candidate Stud Muffin, which meant for the rest of my days there at OCS, every fucking sergeant instructor wanted to meet Candidate Stud Muffin and make sure I bent and thrust my ass in front of them. And I mean, you know, sitting here today, it's funny, but there was almost a point where I really didn't even consider Mitchell or Grant friends anymore. You know, that this was inhumane.
I think we were drunk when we did it. I apologize. We came back. We were at the beach. We were drunk. Somehow we started talking about that.
I was like, what's his name, in Full Metal Jacket. I'd lay there at night crying in my phone. I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna have to go all psycho in their bathroom in the head.
You stud muffin, you.
And I didn't fail one thing at officer candidate school, except you put on there that I was going to get like 100 on Sully 2, and they gave me a 69.9. I got a 69.9 on Sully 2.
Well, there you are, man. You're a good-looking dude.
That's the picture. That's the picture I'm talking about, Mitchell, where we were at that debutante ball you and I went to. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I got my wings, so that was after 91.
Okay.
That's funny, man. You stud.
You know, I still got that package down there in the bedroom. I saved it.
Did you really? You still have it after all these years?
Yeah, I've showed it to you before. Oh, man, I'm scarred for life. Candidate Stud Muffin.
Oh, my God. That is so funny. Well, what other stories have you got, Parker, that I didn't screw you over with? See what kind of trouble I get in with Parker? That's it. I apologize. After all these years, I probably owe you an apology. And here's the worst part.
No.
Here's the worst part. I did that to Parker as a joke about the love child. And fast forward in August of 2001, I get an email from an old girlfriend who goes, "Oh, by the way, sorry I never bothered to notify you, but you have a daughter, and here's her name, Amber Madison Carpenter." And I'm like, this is a joke. And then I'm thinking Parker. That was my first thought, was Parker. But
oh, really? No. You thought I had something to do with that?
No, that was my first thought, was Parker. And then my second thought was, yeah, karma come to bite you in the butt, you know?
I don't know, Mitch. I you know, like I said, as we get older, we forget some stuff. I was telling you, I pulled up some of the challenge coins. Now, you would meet different people at the White House. This is like the head of the CIA's challenge coin. And then I got the chief of staff of the Army's challenge coin right there, General Sullivan.
Yeah.
For some event, I worked with him. You know, Leon Panetta was the chief of staff there at the White House when I was there. So I would with somewhat regularity see people like Madeleine Albright, who again has stayed around in politics. Janet Reno was the Attorney General, so we'd see her some. Was there at the White House? You're talking about the Bushes. Was there at the White House when Bush Sr. and Barber? Now that was interesting. It's his portrait unveiling, and they come into the White House, and you have plainclothes Secret Service and you have uniformed Secret Service. So there's a mixture of these guys standing there in the main entryway at the White House, and it was interesting. The Bushes knew all of them by name, and quite a few of them knew their wives' names. So as they're going around speaking to them, they'd be like, "Hey, Joe," or "Hey, Randy," and "How's Cindy?" Just kind of interesting. I think Barbara Bush was probably very, very caring and gracious woman. From that just instance that I got to see her. You remember Fred Thompson?
Yeah,
senator from the actor, but also senator from Tennessee. You know,
sure.
I would interact when I saw him because he would talk with anybody, just very out. And he was, again, I don't know this for fact, but the word was, big ladies man back in Nashville.
Mhm.
So, and the hunt for Red October and all that stuff sort of lent to his
We are
sort
going to
of,
war. I love
yeah.
him.
Strom Thurmond was still around, but at that point, very,
Are you kidding?
very incapacitated. Yeah.
Yeah, we met him back in 91, or no, I'm not 91.
84 on our Blue Strip.
83, 83,
83.
because
Yeah.
yeah, 83, we met Strong Thurman, and I think he had AIDS at that time, keeping him away from any girls walking by,
Anyway, would see Alan Tipper Gore.
Do you ever talk climate change?
No, never knew he invented the internet. What is there? I don't have the list in front of me that I sent you. Are there any other names that are on there? That?
Oh, hey, Jeff Love's on here, man. Here we go. Hey, Jeff.
Oh yeah.
So 83, yeah, you're right. All right, let's see. You had Liza Minnelli. You drank whiskey with Liza Minnelli.
So no, I didn't drink. So the two state dinners I got to. That's right. The two state dinners I got to work with the South Korean president and the president of Ireland. But the South Korean president's state dinner was very, very formal, and I remember actually I got to eat dinner in the White House mess. We were so busy that night that they decided they were going to serve the dinners, the aides dinner there at the White House. So growing up, you always get the, I can't believe how your manners are. What happens if you ever get to eat at the White House?
Oh my God, no way! Yeah,
who's ever going to get to eat at the White House? But I did get to eat at the White House. And Liza Minnelli was, Liza Minnelli was the entertainment for the state dinner that night with the South Korean president. But the other state dinner I worked, and I told you this story. This is where Ann Stock sort of comes back into the picture as the social secretary. So it's my last event. It's Mary Robinson. She's president of Ireland. She's being honored. They have this huge tent set up out on the south lawn. All these tables under it with a stage at the end of the tent. And all these people are in there. It's a summer, it's like July. And halfway down to the stage, you can see a table with a woman in sort of the aisle, kneeling down and talking to the people at this table. And Ann Stock, the social secretary, comes up to me and she goes, "Capt Perkins, you need to go down there and tell that woman to get back to her seat." And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." So, I go walking down there. "Excuse me, ma'am, you need to return to your seat." And I hear Ann Stock over my right shoulder go, "Miss Carpenter, I'm so sorry. He doesn't know what he's talking about." It was Mary Chapin Carpenter who was there to sing that night. Anyway, I just did an about face, and obviously all my fault, and left. But yeah, Mary Robinson, who I ended up running into 2 years later at a different event and got to speak to her when she was working at the United Nations. But
that's really cool.
That was my last event before I got married. And then I sent you a picture of me. I got called in and had a picture in the Oval Office with Bill Clinton before I checked out.
You know what? I actually have that right there.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, the one that I had that you sent's got the flash in it, so you can't tell if he's handing you a cigar or something.
I have one of those where he actually signed it, and then I have one that's unsigned. I have both of them framed with different letters. So
yeah, you got some cool stuff. I mean, what is that? Some poem they had back in the day.
They had do you have the picture of the Christmas card?
Is that it?
It's in a frame. It's a picture of the Blue Room, which you hear me talk a lot about.
No, I don't have that. I didn't download that, but I have that, and that's the Christmas.
Okay. Thing. Okay. Well, up on my wall here in my office here at home, I have this huge frame, and so 1995, the Clintons sent out Christmas cards to everybody, and there's a normal Christmas card they mailed out. Well,
right.
Well, one day at home, I get this package, and it's like the size of a computer monitor, and it was the limited edition 1995 Christmas card from the White House. And like I said, I've got it framed up here with
Wait
a
a
car.
minute. I do have it. That one.
No, that's the brochure.
Oh, then I don't. Never mind.
I thought I sent it to you. I'm sorry.
You probably did. I probably just didn't get it downloaded. But yeah, that's cool, man.
Anyway, that's about it. I had a few other things. I don't know where they're stored. This was, you and I put this together so last minute is the COVID edition.
Yeah.
I have a menu from the White House. They print these state dinner menus on this really heavy stock paper, and it's usually gold filigree going around it, and it's like a
Cool.
4 or 5 course dinner that the kitchen there at the White House prepares.
Can't you imagine how much money they spend on tent rentals? I mean, they obviously don't have tents in a storage place and behind the White House. So they got to have the tent rentals. All the people come in there and set it up, the background checks for those people to have access to the South Lawn, to print up the menus. Wow.
So here's something for you to think about, Mitchell. They have an entire warehouse, from what I understand, in Washington, D.C., where in January of every year, they start accumulating the decorations for decorating the White House for Christmas at November of that year. And every year it's a continuing cycle of starting to plan how the White House is going to be decorated for the following Christmas and putting together they have volunteers from all over the country come in and decorate those rooms at the White House for Christmas.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. I didn't know that.
Huge ordeal. Huge ordeal, and a lot of volunteers that are brought in to do it. And they are putting that stuff together from January to November every year to get ready for Christmas.
Well, I'm sure the first time you were there, you had to pinch yourself. Like, am I really doing this? But how long did it take you to become comfortable in your environment hanging out there?
Probably the second or third event. And yeah, there would be minutes that you would stop and like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. But, we're all Marines, and you're sit there with a sole focus of performing this mission, whatever it is that night, whatever event, and you got to have on a game face. I remember one day sort of dropping out of character being a Marine officer, and you go into your who's the guy you're always doing the voices of? Jimmy
Stewart. Yeah, right. Yeah, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart. So I'm standing there at the back of the White House, the state dining room, and they're having a press conference, and Bill Clinton's up there talking. And I can't remember the sub shop or something back at the time in D.C. They used to run these ads with somebody that did Bill Clinton's voice. And anyway, I'm standing back there with a few aides, and I started mimicking Clinton's voice and saying something, and a few aides are cutting up, and some 2 or 3 star general standing in front of us like turns around and gives us the stink eye. and all of a sudden you gotta like, I gotta get back on point here. I've lost focus of the mission.
You lost your bearings.
I lost my bearings, and I'm about to get in big trouble because we had an event, and I think I've got this right. I'm going to use his name. His name was Graham Jack. Graham was a captain with me at the barracks, and to this day I say Graham did the right thing. But there was a Rose Garden event. It started raining. They're trying to move people in, and I think Ann Stock asked Graham to serve hors d'oeuvres or something.
Right.
And that's not what the Marines are there to do. And Graham, as politely, I think, as he could, told her he was not there to do that. And I think the Marine Corps, as best they could, agreed with Graham, but he wasn't allowed to work at the White House anymore. And I think he got a ding on his fitness report for not doing what the social secretary told him to do. And there would be small things like, at least from what I remember, Mitchell, there would be these running sort of battles with us and the interns. So you would have these 19, 20, however old they were, 21, 22-year-old interns just out of college. Probably their parents were big donors. This is their first gig. You're a 28-year-old Marine captain, 29-year-old Marine captain who's been in the Gulf War, been deployed. So one of the things as a Marine, you're not there to carry women's purses. You're not there to do this. You're not there. But the interns would come to you like they were in charge of something, and they'd go, "You need to do this." And I'm like, "You're talking to the wrong person. I'm not. You you don't have any say over me. I work for the military office here, and somewhere in that chain of command, we answer to the social secretary. But I'm not here to stand and hold purses at the end of a receiving line. So there'd be some running and gunning on what we would do and not do when we were in uniform up there. And I'm sure there's probably still some of that stuff today for some of
That goes
the
on
aides.
every single administration. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's always something that happens. But God, I never
Well,
even thought about that
you're
aspect.
you were talking about Michael Lewinsky. I mean, there were from my recollection, there were quite a few what I would call very good-looking interns that were at the Clinton White House.
Uh-huh.
But my recollection of them, and there was one of them that I got to know a little bit, and I tried asking her out, and she had zero interest because most of them I don't think really saw any future in folks that were serving in the military, you know?
Yeah.
But when Sarah and I got engaged, we also ran into this same girl again at there was a retirement ceremony for Colonel Bourgeois, who was the head of the Marine Band. And then she was and Sarah was there with me. And I just remember her seeing Sarah's engagement ring. And, it wasn't like a little quarter carat stone or anything. I think this girl was like, well, maybe this guy's got a little bit going on.
One of the most successful stockbroker guys. Hey, you want to give a plug
well, I
for
don't know
your
about,
business? Anybody looking for a great
no plug, no business plugs. No business plugs.
Man.
I'm just on here to do this with you for fun.
Well, I've got a lot of money tied up with you, and you do a great job for me. So I do appreciate it. And if anybody's interested in a great investor, PM me, and I will send you Parker's information. You guys can.
All right. Well, I'll be glad to help him out if I can.
Hey, man, I hope you guys all feel better. Give the family a hug for me, and I can't thank you enough.
Yours too.
If you hang out just for a minute, I'm going to end this, and then I'll say goodbye to you. Just stick around in the green room, all right?
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mitch.
All right. See you in a sec, brother.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. Thanks. I can't thank you enough. There we go. Exit. How about this? Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. Parker and I, as you can tell, go back to when we were freshmen at boarding school. We went to a small Episcopalian school in the Blue Ridge Mountains, probably one of the most beautiful places at the time, just located north of Charlottesville. If you guys ever have a kid that needs that discipline instilled in them, that definitely was Parker and I. And 2-hour study halls every night. We did well. So we all graduated from good schools, had successful careers in the Marine Corps, and have both married up extremely high above our pay grade. So if you have a young kid that's a high school kid having trouble in school, check out Blue Ridge School in St. George, Virginia. But we go all the way back there. We go to James Madison. Oh my God! And then we go to Marines, Okinawa, Japan. We've had some good times. And for my third season, first show out of the gate, I cannot thank Parker for coming on and hanging out with us tonight. It was fantastic. I hope you guys have a wonderful 2022. Just know that the new COVID variant is a mild cold. Our whole family got it. Yay. And it's the third time that I've had COVID, and I have the jab, the one jab, only because I was told I was going to be fired if I didn't get the jab. So I broke down and did it, but I did not feel like doing it. But anyway, I hope you guys have a much better year than we had in 2021. Look forward to seeing you next week. Tall Tales with Taco. Share it with your friends and subscribe. And until I see you next week, which one should we put on? Landon, what ending should I put on? Should I put on the dark, the light, the DNA? You tell me. And I'm going to finish this thing up. We're going to go with, this is always my favorite. Ura, simplify. Adios, hasta luego. Auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, sheshene, au revoir. Domo arigato gozaimasu, tendo shinde, kudasai, ciao, arrivederci, tashikura, and I will see you guys next week. Simplify.